All right, Assalamualaikum. Very good evening, everyone. Hi, my name is Nick Norma Nick Hassan. I'm an adjunct fellow at United Nations University International Institute for Global Health. I'm also a senior lecturer at School of Communication, University Science Malaysia. On behalf of Water Watch Penang, I would like to welcome everyone to this very first WWP virtual online forum for tonight. We are going to address some water crisis issue, and the title of this forum is Averting Future Water Crisis, the Way Forward in Malaysia. With us tonight, we have four experts in water resources management and water crisis in Malaysia. I noticed that there are few people, attendees, who are from Indonesia, from Nigeria. We welcome you so that you can learn one or two things from Malaysia experiences. Yeah. Before we proceed, let me first tell you how this forum is going to be handled. We have four speakers. I'm going to introduce them one by one, and each speaker will be talking about 10 minutes, yeah? And then after we finish all the sessions, and we are going to have Q&A session, you can write, attendees can write your question in the inbox chat down beneath this forum frame. You can write it down here, and then I will choose, if we have lots of questions, I will choose a few, and I will post it to the speaker. If you have a specific speaker that you want to address or post the question to, please write the name of the speakers as well. Okay, without further ado, I think from time to time, because this forum is going to be finished at 10, because this is only an hour forum. So let's not waste more time. So I will call upon the first speaker, and let me introduce the first speaker first. Yeah, very well-known gentleman. The first speaker is Professor Chan Ngai Wing. Prof. Chan is a professor at University Science Malaysia. He's very active in doing research on water crisis, very active in civil society work, and Prof. Chan also a consultant in the field of hydrology, climatology, environment, and water resources study. And Prof. Chan also the current president for Water Watch Penang. For tonight, Prof. Chan will be introducing water-related issues in Malaysia. Without further ado, Prof, I'll pass on the virtual microphone to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick. Okay, very good evening to everyone. And first of all, I'd like to thank all the speakers who have agreed to come on board for this very important Zoom meeting. And especially, I think, Nick, you forgot to mention that this is a joint organization between Water Watch Penang and School of Humanities, USM. So it's just two bodies. So for the sake of time, I'm going to introduce this topic, Averting Future Water Crisis, the Way Forward in Malaysia. So most of the things that I'm going to talk about will be centered towards Malaysia, but of course, we are from Penang, and I will use Penang as the example most of the time. So the outline of the talk is already here, a little bit of introduction to Malaysia as a water-rich country, and also some states, are they water stressed or are they water-rich? Then what are the major water issues in Malaysia? And then how are the water issues going to be addressed? And I don't profess that I know everything, but I will recommend a few things towards the end. I can't seem to move my slide. Okay, using this one. Okay, Malaysia is a water-rich country, as you can see from here. This is from the JPS. We have 3,000 millimeters of rainfall, and we use surface water, which is surface flow, 566 billion cubic meter per year. The renewable water, as you can see from the light blue here, we are so much higher compared to many countries. You see, a lot of countries are under the blue line, which is actually the water stress line, 1,700 cubic meters of renewable water per capita. Malaysia has about 20,000. So can you imagine? I think most people will think, oh, we are very rich in water resources. We shouldn't have any water problem, but actually we have lots of problems. Sometimes we have too much water, and then we have flooding. So this flooding gives us the wrong impression that we have too much water. But actually some months are dry. We have dry season, and during these months we have problem in terms of our water resources. And hence, I think in many states in the country, they are with water stress. So the various states can be classified into rich in terms of water resources like Perak, Pahang, Terengganu, Kelantan, Sabah, Sarawak. But water poor states like those in the red, Perlis, Penang, Selangor, Melaka, Selangor including Putrajaya and Kuala Lumpur, Melaka, Negeri Sembilan, they are the smaller states without much water catchment, and they are the ones having problem. I think as I speak now, Melaka is having water rationing, if I'm not mistaken. Despite being blessed with so much water, we are having lots of problems in terms of pollution, in terms of drought, and so on. As you can see, I'm showing you some of these pictures of yesteryear. We have a serious drought, people water rationing in Kedah, Perlis, Durian Tunggal in Melaka, and then more recently, we have in Selangor, we have water rationing 2014, and now in Melaka they have water rationing, and also Penang just came out of the dry spell. Before the rainy season came, I think it was just 1 or 2 weeks ago, our dams were very dry, including Kedah, as you can see from down here. So the rains have come, so thank God Penang is safe for the moment. So what are the major water issues in Malaysia? So we need to have a change in paradigm. So I can list down 8, maybe there are more. The big problem in Malaysia is most of the states are using single approach of supply management, which means to say, when we build a housing estate, when we build an industrial estate, we just ask, hey, how much water do you need? They say, okay, we need so much, this volume. So we build a dam, we build a treatment plant to supply them, all these people. We never tell the people, okay, you need to control your demand. So there is no demand management. Now we are moving into demand management, but actually not very prominent in terms of the management approach, because it's not a very nice way to tell people not to use so much water. I think Dr. Hong will be talking more about the demand management, so I'm not going to that. So number 2 is a big problem, destruction of highlands and forests and water catchment. As I speak now, I think many forests are being deforested for many reasons, for logging, for building highways, for building dams, housing estates, for mining, and so on and so forth. It's a big problem. Our catchments are destroyed. And there is huge water pollution, gross water pollution. Many of our rivers, I think more than 50% are polluted, including most of the rivers in Penang. And our non-revenue water is very high. Non-revenue water meaning the water that's burst from the pipe. Malaysia itself, I think about 40%, which is no good. Maybe slightly less than 40%. There's a lot of water wastage in terms of non-revenue water. People waste a lot of water. And number 6, the water tariffs are too low. Too low, nobody's paying attention to saving water. And of course, there'll be institutional and enforcement problems, which is normal in Malaysia. And climate change is causing a serious problem as well. So I'm not going to all of them. Maybe for the sake of time, I'm run through the important ones. Okay, so when we use water supply management, we just supply, but many rivers already reach maximum. JPS say 25 river basin already maximum. Maximum means if one river you can build 10 dams, the 10 dams already been built. You cannot build the 11 dam. That means they are already fully maximized. So as time goes on, we cannot use the river anymore because it's already maximum capacity. And then what do? We keep on using this supply management model. We have to go into the demand management, which Dr. Hong will talk about. And Singapore is using the recycling model, using recycling water. Some countries are using the privatization. We should explore and maybe have a more holistic water management rather than just concentrate only on water supply management. Huge destruction in our water catchment. As I speak, you can see, our forest water catchment are destroyed and changed into plantation, into vegetable farms, into highways, into dams. And as I speak, the Ulu Muda forest, the new Kedah government wants to log, to give compensation to the logger. I think about 40 licenses which were approved by the previous government. Now they have to pay compensation, and they say maybe they will open up some areas for them to log. So when they log the Ulu Muda, I think the 3 states will suffer. Perak, Perlis, Kedah, and Penang will suffer because these 3 states depend on this water catchment. So what are the other major problems as well? So water pollution is a serious problem. You see, these 2 rivers, they are the same river. Sungai Averting goes into Sungai Penang, but how can they be the same river? I'm telling you, they are the same river. So our water pollution is very serious. Unless we do something about it, our water in the river will not be able to use the river water in the future. And then we have high rates of raw revenue water. Malaysia is about 35%. How can you lose 35% of your water that you have treated from the pipes? For an industrialized country, a country that is, you call yourself industrialized or you are a mature country, a developed country, you should be less than 10%. I think Japan is maybe 5%, Singapore maybe 10%. And for your information, Penang is 20% is the best. But overall, Malaysia is 35%. This is no good. We are wasting too much water. Why do we waste so much water? Because our tariffs are too low. You can see, Penang, we are paying only 31 cents per cubic meter. And hence, our water usage is the highest. It's terrible. The average use for water is actually 165, recommended by United Nations. Penang is used almost double. Because of all these problems, we need to change. Not to change government or private sector, but we need to change the paradigm, okay? Change the paradigm. So we need to do things differently. So my suggestion for the way forward is just 4. Gazette all water catchments, restructure the water tariffs to make it more competitive, raise awareness in education and use water-saving devices. Penang is the only state that has gazetted all its catchment, but it's too late. Penang, only 5.73% of catchment, and we had to pass a law to gazette it in 2004. I think many other states also have water catchment, but very small. They haven't gazetted all of it. Ulu Muda, I think Kedah has gazetted a small area, maybe only the area near to the lakes. Okay, I'm nearing the end already, Nick, so give me a few more minutes. But this area has been threatened by forest deforestation. So what do we do to restructure a tariff? Look at, this is my water bill. 2000, the year 2000, I only pay 5 ringgit for 2 months. 1 month, 250, 2 ringgit 50 cents. You can't even buy one nasi lemak. And then 2014, I'm paying 6 ringgit. Divide by 2. The bill comes once in 2 months in Penang. 3 ringgit only per month. And for the year 2016, I'm only 5 ringgit per month. For such a low water tariff, how can I tell people to save water? People will just look at you and say, oh, no problem. But they will save in terms of electricity, they will save their water bills, no, they will save the phone bill and so on, but not the water bill, unfortunately. So we need to relook at the restructuring. Just to compare, Penang, the highest bill, water bill in the world is a Bermuda, $7 US, 0.45 US dollar. They are paying 100 times more than Penang. Desalinated water is 23 times more than Penang. Singapore is paying 8 times more than Penang. Penang is one of the lowest. Not the lowest, but Selangor is the lowest. Selangor pays nothing. For the first 20 cubic meter is free water. And I always say I don't agree with this. I think this was an election pledge by the Pakatan Harapan. So I think if they make a mistake, they should reject this and tell the people, explain to them, you cannot give free water because it's sending the wrong message, totally sending the wrong message to the people. Okay, so what do we do about the water tariff? We restructure it. You know, Penang has 5 tier. I think now Spain is doing the restructuring. Every state will restructure into 3 tier, and maybe also the water bill will be combined with the sewage bill. You know, the problem with the water bill now is if the sewage bill, people don't pay IWK, but you cannot cut off their services. You can cut off their water, right? So if you combine the bill, either they don't pay, either you can cut them off, cut their water off. So Singapore, people are very sensitized with water because their water bill is very high. Okay, then we need to raise awareness about education. According to Nelson Mandela, not me, education is the most powerful tool. If people understand, I think they will do the good thing. When people don't understand, they will pollute, they will do all sorts of nonsense. So education, we need NGOs. Unfortunately, in our school, there is no environmental education. Not to say no, but very little. So the NGO has to perform this duty, you know, to go to the school. I'd like to talk a little bit about Water Watch Penang, which is an NGO set up in 1997. And we are doing a lot of work with the PBA, with, you know, other NGOs. We even go to KL, Putrajaya, and so on to run our programs. These are some of our programs on education. We also run field work. We organize, you know, talks and forums like this. And I would like to just spend just a few seconds on this one here. We have been proposing the River Education Center to the government for a long time. This is actually along the Sungai Penang. Years ago, I proposed to Dato' Kesu, who was a JPS head, and he actually tried to allocate some money. I think it was about 10 million for this building here along the Sungai Penang to become a river education center. Inside the center, there will be, you know, a prayer room, kids room, aquarium, auditorium, canteen, and laboratory, and even library and, you know, video room, and everything to do with the river. The museum is on the river, on the flora, fauna, and so on. But lastly, we didn't get the money. They gave it to the Lion, because during that time, the JPS was under the Ministry of Agriculture. So when I proposed the River Education Center, education's under Ministry of Education. So say, Chan, sorry, you must take money from the Ministry of Education, not from us. That's why we lost the center. Anyway, we are still pushing for it. Okay, we can make a difference. Yeah, this Malacca River, very nice. Singapore, and then this is Cheong Yicheng River in Seoul. They have all been rehabilitated, restored. We can reverse from this black thing back to this one. People have done it, and I think we can do it. Okay, the last one is we need to push for water saving devices in all the homes, new homes, old homes, everything must change. See, we need to have automatic tap, water-friendly shower head. We must do away with this traditional flush. Every time you flush 9 liters, we change it to dual flush, you see only 2 liters and 4 liters. And ladies in Europe already got ladies urinal. I'm not sure this will be very popular in Malaysia, but already in Europe they have it. So basically it's just changing to all these things. Okay, we have some projects on Jimat IA, and Dr. Hong will be talking about this. Very successful NPARK condominium and also School of Humanities. Dr. Hong will also be talking about that. So in conclusion, this is my last slide. I think Malaysia is a very rich country in terms of water resources, but the water is not distributed very well. Some months are dry, some months are wet, some months we have drought, some months we have flood. And some states are water stressed, including Penang. So then water is finite, and we need to control our demand. We cannot use water supply all the time. We need to tell people to control, not only people like you and me, but hotels, factories, and so on. And then all these things, the 4 things that I mentioned, we need to do. Otherwise, our water will be in serious problem. Thank you very much, Nick. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Chan. Maybe NGO can work with probably media and other stakeholders to create awareness. Yeah, Prof. So next speaker is Prof. Datuk Dr. Muhammad Ikhwan Toriman. Datuk Doctor is a senior professor in environmental hydrology and urban water quality modeling at Center of Development, Social and Environment, UKM. Datuk Doctor has joined UKM since 1994 and was previously Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Innovation Affairs at University Sultan Zainal Abidin or UNIZA, and also in UKM. Prof. Dato already published more than 250 journal articles and then books and chapter in books and proceeding. Very experienced, another experienced gentleman. Prof. Dato will be talking about water crisis from sustainability river catchment perspective. Please, Dato, you can start now.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dr. Nick and all our respected audience, the speakers, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. And again, thank you very much, Prof. Chan, because most of the point that you have elaborated, so easy for me to explain a little bit further about this water crisis. And before I try to through this issue, let us talk about what is actually a crisis among Malaysians. If you look in the Dewan Bahasa, for example, a crisis is simply a time of intense difficulties or danger. So let us ask everybody, are you feel water is a crisis in Malaysia? The most we having an intense water crisis probably because of the water shortage, probably 1 or 2 days, or probably maybe extend about a week. And the rest, I think even during the water shortage, we also have a good support from the government, where the government give all this water supply, give you all the water tankers for the communities. So again, back to the questions, whether Malaysia having a real water crisis. But in my topic today, what I'm trying to elaborate is more about the water resource. Where is our water come from? So I think probably my next slide is right. If we realize that almost 80% of water supply come from the water catchment, basically it's from the rivers, the lake, and without we realize that this water is come from the upland areas. So-called probably is that people were saying that there is a river catchment in the river in the major perspective they call it a watershed river basins, but actually when you look at the upstream side of our river, it's come from this kind of geography. They're having a range, they have a mountains, they have a hill where all the water being tapping through the reservoir, and they have a dam there or water supply, and downstream of dam is the water intake. In the biggest perspective, especially from on the side of engineer, we can look at water supplies or river catchment consists of the 3 zones. One is the inlet protections, the second one is the collection regions, and the third one is the outlet protection. And most of this water actually come from a simple hydrological circles, where everybody knows that where is the water come from, where is the water drops. If you look on this diagram, it's a very simple where the waters drop from the upland area, and we collect the water through the reservoir, and from the reservoir to the water extractions, they have a lot of activities among here. So again, in terms of to preserve the water catchment, we have to look the entire system or ecosystem between the upland area, upstream of the reservoir and downstream of the dam before they go to the water extractions in the further downstream. So if I can share a little bit on the facts and figures, which I think Prof. Chan was elaborate before. When you're talking about the water catchment, it's always related to the water resources. Of course, some of the state, for example, like Kelantan, almost 30 to 40% is relying on the groundwater. But most of the state, it's come from the water resources, especially from the water reservoir. And surprisingly, we have about 150 major river system. So when we relate with this amount of major river system with a water crisis, it looked like very impossible. But again, we not drink a raw water. I think most of the people, they get confused. We don't drink a raw water, we drink a treated water. It's a very big difference between the raw water that we tapping from the upstream side and the treated water. In the Malaysian perspective, if you look at most of this treated water has been extracted downstream from the dam. If I'm not mistaken, only one good example where the water was extracted at the upstreams and that reservoir itself. If you go to the Lengyu, which is operated by Singapore, the water supplies is come directly from the reservoir itself, the Lengyu Dam. But most of the water intake is along the river downstream from the dam itself. And in Malaysia, if I can see here, almost 1.3 million forest reserve is classified as water forest. This is some of the initiative that been given by government. In fact, if you look, I give you one good example. One of the state in Malaysia, in Pahang, they just gazetted nearly like what the Prof. Chan mentioned before. We have to gazette some of this forest area to become a forest catchment or from the water catchment. Pahang was gazetted nearly 250,000 hectares of these forests to become a gazetted area for the water catchment. And 97% of the raw water supply in Malaysia come from river system. This is the fact that we actually rely on the water supply from the river systems, and the river systems is come from the water catchment. And in Malaysia, mostly nearly 47, we have almost 47 single purpose dam and 16 multi-purpose dam, which is a total storage nearly 25 billion cubics. And out of there, what I'm really sad to see that 80% of the urban river waters are polluted. And this is reflecting to the what is actually the scenario of this water supply and demand in Malaysia. If you look here, right, some state, now what we projected in 2015, some states have a greater demand for irrigation water, while others for potable water or demands in both sectors. So when you're talking about water crisis, it's not only a domestic water supply, it covers everything: irrigation waters, water for water supply, water for the hydropower, so on and so forth. And this character of this demand profile is always dynamic and can be reserved over time. So we need a good governance to protect and to manage our water demand, especially in the next 2050. And normally, based on our previous calculation, we found that water demand is generally tends to increase, never reduce. Sometimes it always remains static, and most of the states tends to increase over time. And another thing is that I want to share related to the water crisis, especially come from the water catchment perspective, is the key issues in terms of sustainability in the river catchment. I think we among the academicians is talking this issue many years ago. I think some of our friends, our fellow is already retired, and but still we keep asking, keep discuss, and keep and give an idea to the government on how we can solve this problem. As what we understood, that one of the major key issue on water crisis, especially related to the water catchment, is deforestation. In terms of physical perspective, the process of interception and transpiration will be reduced. When you remove all the trees, especially in the biggest area, is increased to the increase in terms of the mudslides and also slope stability. And yet, without further mitigating measure, it can be lead for the flooding, especially in the downstream. The second that I want to stress here is a crisis of governance. I think this is already discussed many times in many platforms. You know, what is actually our role in terms of institutional and legal issues in the river catchment. Most of these legislations perspective has been covered many years ago. If I'm not mistaken, we have about 25 agencies related to manage this water catchment. But in between the inlet to the water storage, perhaps they have a few legislations, acts or ordinance that covers on that particular area. But the most problematic is between the dam itself to the water intake, where this particular area, especially I call it is zone 3, has been covered by a lot of land use and land cover changes over the years. You know, name it, is deforestations, urbanizations, all is sometimes is a legal, which some of the state is known about this. They acknowledge about this problem. And the next one is a lack of human resources capabilities, financial constraint and socio-economic issues which need to be tackled, especially between the stakeholders, the NGOs, the people, the residents settle on that particular areas. And the fourth one is the extent of urban conurbations. Because of the rapid economics, we have to admit that some of this water catchment has been destructed for many years. You know, they don't have any places that urban starting to extend from urban to the suburban, and the suburban is closely to the river catchment. And as what the Prof. Chan said, another key issue is the pollutions, agricultures, and also the farmings, which is again is within the government, especially the state acknowledgement. My last slides today is more on sustainable management on river catchment. I think to tackle the water crisis in the water catchment perspective, we need to ensure all development activity will have an acceptable impact, especially in terms of both water yield and water quality. And remember, mostly, especially in terms of pollution, we can simply calculate that they came from the two sources, point sources and non-point sources. You know, non-point sources is quite difficult to trace, but point sources we can easily to mitigate the problem. But if you can see that most of the water quality at the upstreams is within class 1 and class 2. And when it's flowed away, it's flowed downstreams away, we can see that the water quality start to deteriorate. And we can assume here that most of this problem come from the anthropogenic activities. So we need an integrated involvement among the stakeholders, local authorities, environmental managers, NGO. This topic has been, discussed many years ago, and I think that they have a lot of white papers, they have a lot of policies paper, they have a lot of improvement in terms of managing the environment has been improved by the stakeholders. But again, I can confident that some of this effort that has been done by state can be improved further for the next futures, especially in terms of managing the water crisis within the water catchment perspective. And the last one, I think, is we need to reduce the policy gap, because there are so many stakeholders involved in the water catchment, and there are so many legislation. The water quality itself the legislation related to water quality itself, we have about nearly 30 legislations that need to be really elaborate among the stakeholders, especially, and the NGO, which is, I think, give the benefit to the people within the water catchment. Thank you very much, Dr. Nick. I leave it to you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Dato. If I can sum up, it is very important to have involvement from various stakeholders, and then enforcement of legislation is also very important. Yeah, Dato. Okay, thank you very much. The next speaker is the most youngest one, I think. That is Dr. Hong Chen Wen, yeah, the third speaker. But don't worry, Prof. Chan, you are still the most handsome one. So yeah, Dr. Hong is the most youngest one among the four speakers. Dr. Hong has been a member, volunteer, and facilitator of Water Watch Penang since 2004. He's very passionate about educating youngsters on taking in charge of water conservation. And tonight, Dr. Hong will be sharing with us his experiences on NGOs' role in the context of Water Watch Penang in helping the society to be better prepared for climate crisis. Over to you, Dr. Hong.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Nick. Okay, hold on, allow me to share my screen. Okay, could you see my screen? Oops, sorry.
No.
Oh, it's a white screen, sorry. Press release. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay, everyone can see my screen, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, good evening and good day to everyone and all the participants. It's an honor for me. I mean, to be youngest, well, it's really an honor. It's really an honor for me to be invited to talk on behalf of Water Watch Penang. I mean, albeit that I'm also a staff of WF Malaysia. So, but today I'm talking under the head of Water Watch Penang. So, my part will be it will be like less technical. Okay, let's go first before we go to our role, we'll talk about quickly go about the aim of Water Watch Penang. Okay, for our aims, we have shifted our aims to be in line with SDG goals that involve the SDG goal number 4, which is quality education, and then number 6, clean water and sanitation, and 11, sustainable cities and communities, 12, responsible consumption and production, 13, climate action, and 17, partnership of goals. Those are all the aspirations that we have to be in line in order to promote our studies. I mean, our studies awareness, water awareness programs, and water demand management program. Those are the important parts that we have identified actually. So for the activities here, by focusing on non-structural and structural methods to be prepared for climate crisis, WWP Water Watch Penang, we act as a bridge between Penangites and local communities and public or private sector, as well as other NGOs. So non-structural methods refers to in this case is via education and capacity building or capacity development. While structural methods refers to like rainwater harvesting, installation of water saving devices, and any kind of available tech that we can find. So in this slide, you could see that we have been partnering with the governments, especially Penang State Government and PBAPP, which is the Pihak Bekalan Air Pulau Pinang, and as well as MBSP, Majlis Bandaraya Seberang Perak, in delivering the river and water education to schools that in Penang that covers the topic of water issues in Malaysia, and then we zoom into Penang State with the issues here, as well as the importance of rivers as a source of drinking water to us, especially in Penang, because Sungai Penang is heavily polluted. We have only several rivers that are clean. And in these photos, in this picture, in this slide, you can see that this is one of the few remaining clean rivers. That is the Waterfall River in Botanical Gardens in Penang. So in addition to that, we have also educate them in terms of like the physical, chemical, and biological assessment of a healthy river. And in each program, definitely, we always urge them to use the water wisely. Okay, and then actually just by taking simple steps at home, I mean, to everyone here as well, just by taking simple steps, very simple steps, in which like, such as you could reduce your shower time, turn off the tap while soaping your body, and while brushing your teeth. Those are the things that we don't really follow actually. And actually, if you've done this, you can actually result in a huge difference in total water consumption, especially in Penang, because Penangites are the highest water user in Malaysia. This is the important part. We have to start doing this, taking small steps that could result in huge difference. And this is a program at Cerot Tokun in collaboration with Majlis Bandaraya Seberang Perai. Same activities with them. This is also one of the few remaining clean rivers and clean public parks that can be used for our activities. And we have formed partnership with private corporations, with Intel, and also with Salcom Berhad in Selangor, whereby we have been having partnership with them for at least 10 years already in a Salcom Smart Water program that is similar to the core program, which is the River Water Education program in Penang. So, and then right now, in terms of education, we're also expanding our module by including the role of forests in this program, as well as planning new activities and projects with potential schools in Penang on rainwater harvesting and water audit. Of course, if there are any private corporations or companies that would like to seek our help, I mean, hopefully we can assist you in this. And then here we also train passionate educators, water leaders as well, so that they could transfer down the knowledge to teach to the children or to the public, not only to the school children, but also to university students and also the whole communities of Penangites. So speaking of water demand management, let's go to this part. Water demand management is not only about saving money. I mean, water is cheap in Penang, yes, but in some cases, like in Sabah, Sarawak, Johor, water is expensive. And you could see that the graph, actually, they uses less water. I think there's some correlation in there. But in Penang, we have cheap water. But again, if on the increment of water tariff, it's quite political. I won't go into that. But let's see about what we can do to use water less, and also to be climate resilient. Because actually, for me, in my personal opinion, we are already in climate crisis. Okay, we are already experiencing climate crisis already. It's not like it's coming soon or what. We could see that for the past few weeks, Penang has been experiencing dry spells. You could see that the dam has dropped below 20% of our capacity, of its full capacity. That is really scary for Penang, because Penang has not suffered so much. I mean, we have not experienced such drop in the water dam. Just that we are lucky that we have not experienced water rationing. Okay, we should be lucky, but we are lucky, but we must be grateful and we must take steps in order to avert this water crisis. So if you look into this project, this is the first ever water demand management project of Water Watch Penang in collaboration with JPS Penang and NPARK Condominium Management and Residents and the engineering consultant and one engineering consultant as well as USM. So here we played the role in identifying the crucial areas that uses the most water, which is the public area. I mean, there are 4 blocks here, the public area as well as the toilets in the badminton courts and also the toilets in the public area. And we have participation from 100 units of residents. I mean, they volunteer to join, and this one includes the installation of water-saving devices in their home and also rainwater harvesting project on the rooftop of the badminton court. So in addition to this, we also have a monthly engagement with the communities whereby they share about their experience using rainwater harvesting. And then this one does not flow. This one is the flow of this rainwater harvesting is using gravity flow. So we don't use any electricity. That's already saved a lot. And then they share first with their experience. Actually, by washing their car using rainwater is actually cleaner because does not create any spots. That's the experience of the public. This is the most important part. We have to engage with them, to share with them, and then we educate them about the importance here about this project. Okay, and after this project ends, I mean, we still do the the monitoring. Actually, 3 months after this project has ended, actually the water saving results has shown a reduction of 30% in reduction. You can imagine how much money does NPARK has already saved. And we have this area has been this condominium has also been visited by other condominium associations to replicate this project. Okay, so if we go to here, this project has also been replicated by USM School of Humanities. Okay, we start with this first at that time, whereby the projected money saved is used to develop this project in School of Humanities, and it's of the usage of toilets as well as the common area to be used, and also for the gardening. We use this rainwater. And then inside the office of lecturers and also the office of School of Humanities, they also changed the equipments to water-saving devices so that they could save the water in terms of it. And this one includes giving education talks about these projects, and we show them about the result as well, which has a reduction. I've not remembered the percentage of reduction, but definitely it reduced the consumption. And next one, I think we are looking into water-saving devices to be installed in hostel of USM, because as far as I remember, the students uses a lot of water in the toilets while having showers, and they never pay for it. They don't pay for it. They pay their university fees. That's it. And the cost, the total monthly water bill for USM is 500,000 ringgit per month. This is the total. So the next one could be partnering with USM into installing water-saving devices in each of the hostels in USM. Okay, other role mean like we have other roles of water wash as well, including awareness raising event through World Water Day celebration, in which we have not been able to do it this year due to the MCO movement of COVID-19. And we have organized annual water quiz in Penang and Selangor, while we also set up booth in water exhibitions to any invited events. And due to small size in terms of full-time staff and volunteer, we could only cover Penang landscapes with some in Selangor. But of course, we do welcome collaborative opportunities with anyone. Let's see how it works. And of course, our work here is always with the aim to create a water-saving society. Thank you, Dr. Nick.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Hong, for explaining what Water Watch Penang has been doing. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, the last speaker, last but not least, is Professor Dr. Narimah Samad. Prof. Narimah is also the Dean of School of Humanities, our collaborator for tonight with WWP. Yeah? The Dean of School of Humanities, University of Science Malaysia. Prof. Narimah is a professor in Geographic Information Sciences, and she has been conducting research more than 15 years in GIS and urban land use modeling. So tonight, she's going to be addressing on land use change and water. Please, Prof. Narimah.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good evening to all. Thank you very much, Dr. Nick, for your kind introduction. I think being the last, in a sense, that's what I plan to talk to have been other speakers has already addressed. So my role would be much easier in the sense that I'm just going to share the part that haven't been talked about. So basically, as we are experiencing water crisis, as mentioned earlier, land use, land cover has quite a significant impact on that one. If we look at population in Malaysia, for example, in the past 5 years, for example, projection is about only 31 million people, and it's expected to increase to 33 million in 2020. But urbanization is very high. In 2015, it's only 70%, 74%, and then it increased to 77%. But it is projected to increase to 41 million, where 85% is urban. Okay, if you look at in terms of, if we try to understand it in relation to water demand, this will have significant impact on water in the urban area. Okay, another issue that I would like to share is that the increase of urban land in comparison to reduction of agriculture land. Yeah? If we have in 2001 to 2015, we have a significant increase of urban land. Yeah? The demand for water is basically higher in urban area for domestic use and also other industrial use, but for rural area it's more on agriculture and such that. Why this figure is important is that because although the area is only small, less than 10% of the area, total land area for Peninsular Malaysia, for example, this data is for Peninsular Malaysia, although the area is less than 10% of Peninsular Malaysia, however, more than 75% of the population are staying in this small piece of land. So these have caused significant impacts on the environment, particularly on water and other resources. And then this is, I'm sharing land cover in Malaysia. In 2001, for example, urban area is only this small part in Klang Valley and also a few more dots in Johor, Kuantan and Penang. However, if we look at the, if we look at in 2008, for example, this start to increase. And while in my last figure here, more urban area in Klang Valley, Penang, more red area, built-out area can be seen. So this has some implication on resources and also on the environment. If you look at recent newspaper cutting, yes, stating as Prof. Ifwan also shared just now, water issue has become a crisis in particularly in Klang Valley area and also in other states where in and also the reason for that is because unsustainable water consumption. This is also mentioned earlier, and also uncontrolled development that have occurred. Yeah. Why is this water issue happened in Malaysia? Land use and land cover changes has significant impacts on water resources. Changes from forest, vegetation to agriculture can also bring negative impact to the environment and also subsequently on water resources. Another thing is that non-sustainable forest clearing or built-out area can also lead to other problems such as soil erosion, as landslide, flooding, and also other environmental issues such as illegal logging, land clearing, agriculture, where tree was removed, has also left the land barren and reduced the ability of the soil to hold the moisture. So water crisis, if we look at area, huge pressure to water resources, particularly on urban area, wastewater and solid waste, polluting river, as mentioned by Prof. Ifwan just now, more than 80% of the river in urban area in Malaysia was polluted. So other economic activities also have caused river pollution. What I want to share is that another study where we conducted in Georgetown conurbation, where we tried to use geography information system and remote sensing technology to, geography information technology is to simulate urban spatial growth. We look at urban area and then we simulate urban spatial growth and see the trend changes in the past 20 years. After that, what we do is that we try to predict future changes and see and compare with water demand and also other environmental issues. And then we propose the usage of urban growth boundary in order to limit borderless development, so that land use changes within this particular boundary is controlled. So my map on the right, for example, showing that where we predict urban going to grow, and then we try to contain urban development so that more urban development will occur in sustainable manner, such that environmental impacts and other social impacts can be controlled. I think that's my last slide. I think so. What we are trying to propose is that using a scientific tools to predict where urban going to grow, where land use changes is more dynamic, in the sense that we bring in policy to control such urban development, such that the stress on water and other resources can be reduced. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much from Prof. Narimah for that very concise and precise presentation. Okay, we received lots of questions here, and now it's already 9:56. Maybe hopefully we can, if all the speakers allow, maybe we can finish around 10:05 if everyone is okay. So I will quickly read the first question to Prof. Dato' Ikhwan. What do you think about the strategy to strengthen cooperation among Malaysian states to manage water catchment in transboundary river basins?
Right. Dr. Nick and the rest of the audience, I think in terms of the collaboration between the state, we have a good example, which has been done by previous governments and continues by current governments. The Langat River 2 is one example where the water was extracted from the Klau River in Pahang, transmitted to the Langat, cater to support Langat peoples. But again, when you're talking about these issues, we have to admit that no matter land and water is always related to the state matters. If you look in the Perlembagaan Malaysia, also stated that issues of related of land and water is belong to the state. Federal can also only can advise, on these particular topics. But the most important things when you want to see between the collaborations between the states is we have to again admit that what we are trying to manage is not the raw water. Between states, there are a lot of water catchment that can be functional as a water supply. The problem of Malaysia is not the raw water. We having a problem in treated water, like what the Prof. Chan mentioned. We have a vast in terms of the raw water. 3,000 millimeters per year is a very huge amount of water. But the problem of Malaysia is how we want to treat the water. We having a lack in terms of treated water. That is lacks come from a lot of problems. The governance, the habits of the Malaysians, and how we manage actually the raw water. Because that's quite surprised, because raw water is actually free. It's given by Allah to Malaysians. But somehow we cannot manage properly. That need a lot of collaboration between states. You can see that Johor and Melaka, we have a good collaboration in terms of water supplies, where some of the Sungai Muar we transmitted the water into the Pangan, Durian Tunggal and Asahan. Sungai Klau also transmit the water from the Pahang boundaries to the Langat. What else? Probably Prof. Chan can give one or two examples in the northern part of the Peninsula Malaysia. But I always stress in Malaysia, we have to educate the people and the state that we now having a problem in terms of treated water. That is why now government, I hope they can really focus on how they can mitigate and make sure that we can optimize this treated water. Dr. Nick.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Dato. I will now quickly read the second question. Maybe one of you can answer. What is an equitable and sustainable commercial arrangement between supplier and consumer states? Example, Kedah and Penang, or Pahang and Negeri Sembilan, or Selangor.
Okay, Nick, I will answer that question because
Yes,
I have
please.
experience. Thank you very much, Tan Sri, for asking this important question. As I speak now, I think today there were some news in the news, some statement from the Friends of Ulu Muda to ask the Kedah government not to lock the Ulu Muda water catchment, because the Ulu Muda water catchment is the main water catchment for the 3 states of Perlis, Kedah, and Penang. So if you're asking me what is an equitable kind of payment, I believe Penang should pay Kedah for the water. But at the moment, Penang is not paying Kedah because of this. The Muda River actually runs into Penang, flows into Penang. So when the river is in Penang, it actually forms a boundary between Kedah and Penang. So half of the river of this boundary is on the Penang side, the other half is on the Kedah side. So the Penang government says we are taking water when the Muda River is inside Penang's territory. So we are taking our own water. Hence, they don't want to pay. I'm not saying that this is a correct thing to do, but because the water is inside Penang's territory and they are taking the water, and hence they don't want to pay Kedah. But this may not work in the long run, because why? Because the river water is from the Ulu Muda water catchment, and if Kedah were to lock the catchment, there will be no water coming down into Penang. So in time to come, there will be no water flowing into Penang, and Kedah will say, okay, if you want water, we release water from the Muda Dam, and then you get some water flowing into Penang. So when they release the water, how much water they release, then Penang should theoretically pay for that. So actually the NGOs, Friends of Ulu Muda, are working on another approach, which is payment for ecosystem services, which is to say, if you use water from this catchment, you should pay for it. It doesn't matter whether you are from Perak, you're from Kedah, you're from Perlis, or you're from Penang. As long as you are using this water, Perlis people should pay for the ecosystem service, which is water. Kedah people should pay, Penang people should also pay. We are not saying that Penang is paying Kedah. Penang is paying for the ecosystem service, which they get from the Ulu Muda catchment, not paying the Kedah government. Police should also pay for this ecosystem service, which I think maybe the federal can moderate in this respect. So if you ask me how much, then it's very difficult for me to say how much. I think now the Penang is charging about 32 cents per cubic meter for domestic consumer, but actually the cost of production is more than 1 ringgit because it's heavily subsidized. So if you look at the cost of production, I think if the cost of production is 1 ringgit, the raw water, if we were to pay Kedah, should be maybe 10%, 10%, I don't know, 10 cents, 10 cents. Singapore is paying Johor 3 cents. But that's another issue altogether. So I don't have the answer how much we should pay. That's really something fair, I think something fair. But I do agree that we should pay for the ecosystem service. Maybe not directly pay to Kedah, pay for the ecosystem service, and the federal is the one who is moderating this. Even the Kedah people need to pay. As long as you use the water, you pay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Chan. Actually, there are a few questions related to Ulu Muda as well. I think Prof. Chan has already addressed it. From answering one question, you actually addressing another few questions, which I did not read just now. So if speakers are okay, can you allow me to maybe ask one more question. Is that all right with everyone? Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So there's another one question here. Any one of you can answer. The question is, the groundwater of the lower Sungai Selangor Basin and Pulau Keri is increasingly saline. If there are dams at the mouth of the Selangor and Langat rivers, would this improve the groundwater quality and thereafter useful for localized consumption? Maybe Prof. Ikwan or Dr. Hong or Prof. Narima, Prof. Chan?
Okay, I will try to answer. Maybe the others can back me up.
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
if you build the dams along the river, and then the less water will be flowing into the estuary and flowing to the sea, and this Pulau Keri is actually near the sea, right? So their groundwater will become more saline because less water from the river is going into the sea. The groundwater is less going into the sea, so the water becomes more saline, and this will become a serious problem. Because during the dry season, when the river flow is less water coming down from the river, the saltwater intrusion gets further and further inland. That's why a lot of people face problems during the dry season. Prof. A1?
Right. I think I beg to differ. I think a couple of years ago, I did a quite extensive study on the so-called downstream water catchment. Look, when we build a dam at the mouth or downstream of the river, the water of this saline water become a brackish water over the years. And they have a good example where the brackish water has been done for many countries. But in terms of water surface, over the years, when we blocking or plugging the water at downstream, they call it the brackish water projects, right? And this water from saline can transfer over years to become a brackish water. My studies in the Sungai Johor since in 2013, we found that by having some modeling in terms of hydraulic and hydrologies in the Sungai Johor, the amount of saltwater intrusions going further upstream can be controlled by having this downstream water catchment dam. Because Sungai Lebam is a downstream of the Sungai Johor. When they enter to the Sungai Johor, that area is supposed to be a saline, and it becomes slowly to the brackish water. And this will be actually control and reduce the amount of salt water intrusion to the Kota Tinggi reservoir. But that one is a surface water. I don't have any data in terms of groundwater, but I presume that if you plug the water at the downstream, especially at the river mouth, they can slowly by naturally the saline water can change into the brackish water. And this is what actually some of the countries have an alternative. Instead of develop the upstream water catchment, they develop the downstream water catchment by developing this so-called the control dam at the river mouth of the rivers. But to be honest, our study in the Sungai Johor, when we try to develop this, it costs you nearly touch to the a billion ringgit. It's very expensive because for the Sungai Johor itself, you have to stretching the dam almost 5 kilometers the cross sections, and they have a water control. That water been allowed to flowing from the upstream to downstreams, and you have to allow from the downstream to the upstream due to the water type. So that's my response on that questions.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Dato and Prof. Chan. Last question. Can I pose last question? This maybe Dr. Hong can address, since almost everyone know that Malaysia are facing water crisis. Malaysia is facing water crisis. Do you think that by implementing rainwater harvesting system should be mandatory to the developer? I think the government should implement that step by step in this country. What do you think, Dr. Hong?
Okay, yeah, this one I will answer based on my honest opinion. Well, I think definitely we should make it mandatory by the developer. But again, like it's on the design. It's there's one issue that is going to be challenged. If condominium units, I think they can do it. even in the community I'm staying right now, I mean, they can do it, but they have not done it. Well, I might try to push it to ask them to do it. For landed properties, the design base is going to be ugly for them if it's a huge one. But for small one, they have not done it yet. But I have this idea if that we can propose, or we have to advocate with LHDN, especially for the developer or for people like us, for tax rebate if you pay and install rainwater harvesting systems, or even water saving devices, or any other green stuff like solar panels or stuff like that. Because in the taxation form, e-filing, there are like sections on lifestyles, there are sections on for medical bills and stuff like that, but there's no section for green initiative. I mean, if you do that, I mean, I'm sure many will install it, and then from there they can get a tax rebate if you do it that way. Yeah, instead of like, I mean, hopefully they can not only to the people, I mean, via the LHDN for e-filing, but also for the developer, in which if they can get a tax rebate by using rainwater harvesting system in the design. Yep, that's from my side.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hong. I think Prof. Chan and Prof. Dato, Dr. Hong, Prof. Narima, on behalf of Water Watch Penang and School of Humanities USM, we would like to thank the speakers for very insightful thoughts tonight, and also to all the attendees that have been participating since 9 p.m. Tonight, yeah, until now. It's already 10:12. So before we go off, we would like can you please turn on your camera, so that, because we would like to take a group picture, even though it's virtually, but we appreciate that if you can turn it on. Yeah. Wai-Ling will snap picture or something. Wai-Ling? Okay, right. I hope everyone can. I can see a few more people. All right. Okay.